Good afternoon. Welcome to the Glendale Water and Power Commission meeting for Monday, February 4th, 2013. Can we start with roll call, please?
Commissioner Jemian? President Armenian?
Present.
Commissioner Dentler?
Present.
Commissioner Yao?
Present.
Commissioner Chan?
Present.
Next agenda item, please.
2 consent items, approval of the November 5th, December 3rd, 2012, and January 7th, 2013 meeting minutes.
Okay. Can we do these all at once, or should we take them one at a time?
President Armenian, you can do them all at once, or you can do them one at a time. I think there were various commissioners that were at certain meetings that may or may not want to vote for certain ones.
Yeah. Why don't we do them separately, since that was the case? Let's start with November 5th. Any comments, changes?
Can I ask you to pass on that one moment and go on to the other ones?
Let's come back to it.
Thanks.
Okay. December 3rd, 2012 minutes. Any comments or changes to that?
I move approval.
No changes.
No changes, okay. With no changes, no comments, then we'll consider those approved. January 7th, 2013.
No changes.
Well, I wasn't here, but I've seen some typos, specifically relating to discussion on coal plant.
Actually, that's the one that I asked to be passed on for a minute. Don't we have one more to approve?
No, that was the third, actually.
Oh,
The one
okay.
you
I thought
passed on was
we have
November
two more.
5th.
Yeah.
You want us to come back to the?
I want to comment on November 5th as well.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Oh, I don't have any comments on November 5th,
Well,
just
let's-
the January 7th.
Since we're on the 7th, let's do the 7th.
Excuse me one second. That's two. Sorry, thank you. We're sorting out our pages, numbering here.
I was not present at that meeting, so I would abstain from approval.
Yeah, I was just curious, like, for section C, for the January 7th meeting minutes, 3C, there was a lot of discussion about coal plants, and on the fourth paragraph, starting with LADWP is trying to set up a coal off-ramp, and the second sentence, shouldn't that be plant with a T rather than plant? So it should say, repowering contracts to propose a gas plant instead of a coal plant? Or are you guys talking about a plan, like a strategic plan?
No, that's correct. It should be plant on both of those.
Then the next paragraph, on the third sentence, it should say Commissioner Dentler stated some coal operators. I think it should be COAL, because you guys are talking about coal rather than
Correct.
coal. That was the only misspell typos I've seen.
I had an additional comment on the this lengthy section regarding coal, and I know it might have been a challenge to type up. We had a very lengthy conversation, and there was a lot of back and forth with staff, so I know it might be a challenge to summarize everything. But in addition to just those minor typos, what I recall from our meeting was that it ended with a consensus among those of us who were in attendance that day that we would build into our agenda forecast a regular update from staff about our coal contracts and our strategic planning towards reduction of our reliance on coal, and that we then specifically directed that it would appear back on our agenda for the April 1st meeting. And maybe that's in here somewhere,
Well, the
but I
very
didn't...
last sentence kind of says it, not exactly
Right.
the way you said it.
But I think that we need to specify that it was coming back and that staff was going to give us another report April 1. And I do think that that should be reflected in the minutes so that the community can prepare for April 1.
Commissioner Dentler, it's somewhat captured under agenda forecast, although not It says that Mr. Zern suggested to add a quarterly update regarding coal projects for April. I don't know if that's adequate or...
Well, I think that was a commissioner suggestion, but in any event, I see it's there. Thank you. And I do think that this was generated by the commissioners after the staff presentation. But in any event, I'm satisfied. It does
That's
say
satisfied.
April. Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
You'll
So
see it does, Mr. President, members of the commission, you'll see as well, it is actually on the April
Yeah, I saw
date
that
for
on
the agenda forecast as
We'll
well.
discuss later.
In addition to that comment, it actually is on the agenda forecast.
Very good. Thank you so much. With that in mind, then I have no further comments.
I do have a question also now that I'm rereading this. In that fourth paragraph, LADWP is trying to set up a coal off-ramp for IPP to decide what we will do in 2027. LADWP and IPA are offering. Is it really IPA, or are we talking about SCAPA?
It's IPA.
IPA?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's the Intermountain Power Authority, which is kind of the
Okay.
umbrella organization
I see.
that owns the plant.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, well, given that, really the only changes are typo corrections, so everyone's okay. I would suggest that we approve it based on the assumption that the typos will be corrected.
I'll move approval.
Okay, so that approves January 7th, so if we could go back to November 5th, 2012.
I have no changes, Mr. President.
I read it before the meeting, so I have no changes at all.
This goes back a ways for me, but I came to the December meeting prepared to approve, and I was present, so I would be happy to approve unless anyone has any changes.
No? Okay, then we'll consider November approved as well.
December, right?
No, this is, we went back to November 5th.
Oh, November.
Yeah, we did December, January, and then November 5th we just came back to because Commissioner Dentler was looking at a few things. Did you vote differently?
Okay, because for November, I was not there, so.
Okay, so you
I will
would
abstain, yeah.
you would abstain? Okay. But the rest of us were okay with it? Okay. So we'll consider these minutes approved, and that gets rid of that backlog. We'll try and keep up in the future so that, I know it's hard going back many months and remembering everything that happened. So with that, next agenda item, please.
3A, utility modernization update.
Members of Mr. President, members of the commission, I'm Steve Lenz, the Chief Assistant General Manager, sitting in for Mr. Zern today. He was called to duty with jury service. So today, we've got a couple of short items. The first is an update on our utility modernization program, and we'll have Mr. Craig Keenan actually on both of these items.
My name is Craig Keenan, Business Transformation and Marketing Administrator. This first presentation will cover 4 items: our budget and expenses, our recent successes, work that we plan on doing the rest of this year, and then a look at the coming fiscal year 13-14. So, projected budget and actual costs. You remember that our obligation to the DOE is $51.3 million. Up with the project was originally scheduled for completion in March 2nd, 2013. We asked for and received an extension to March 2nd of 2014. Our original expenditure projection by December 12, and I have to have my glasses for this, actually. Well, actually, it was about $50.1 million. I believe that's what that says.
Yes. I brought my glasses, so
Yeah, I got to switch back and forth.
I'll help
It's-
you.
I wrote it down because it's hard to. So our expenses through December actual through 2012 were about $45.4 million. And like I said, our projection or our obligation is 51.3. And if you look at our expenses net of the grant, In December, it was 24.9, and at the end, it should be 30.3.
So just for, again, we haven't addressed this topic for a while, just for the benefit of the public to refresh their memory, because there's often misinformation out there. I just want to take the opportunity to clarify. So the grant itself was from Department of Energy, federal grant, tax dollars coming back to our community, and to GWP. It was a total of $20 million. Is that correct?
$20 million from DOE.
Okay. And is that all 20 going to GWP, or is half of that ours, half of it? Because Burbank, what's,
Million to GWP. We also had a $1 million grant from the CEC.
which is the California Energy Commission, which is a state grant. Okay.
Correct.
And so the total project cost is, as you cited, about $51.3 million, of which $20 million is paid for by federal tax dollars. So the net cost of the system for us, for the project, is $30 million.
Yeah, we can't forget, we do get the million from the CEC.
Yeah.
It's 21 million.
29 million.
And we've
Yep.
received about 600,000 from the CEC and about 19.9 from the DOE already.
And the reason I say this also is because I think I've heard a lot, oftentimes I get confronted that there's they use this 70 million figure.
Yes.
Where is that coming from?
The additional 19 million was the water project,
Right.
which was never part of this project. It was something the water department was going to do anyways. They had to replace the brass water meters. Well, I should correct it. There was about $5 million in addition that we spent on the water so we could read the meters remotely. There was about $15 million it was in their budget to do
Got
it at any.
Right. So this cost that you just presented is the electric side.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And so we have now, the extension is until, for the DOE, because we have commitments, in return for getting the money from DOE, we have to meet certain obligations on the project.
Yes.
And that date, we've gotten extended, right, in terms of when we have until to complete the
Right.
project.
Yes. We have 1-year extension, March 2nd, 2014.
Right.
And I'll kind of go over how much
Yep.
we still have to go towards
Yep.
that in one of these slides.
Thank you.
So recent successes, as of January 29th, if you remember, a few months back, we talked about how we were billing 25% off the system, and we were doing different things to mitigate things, and hopefully that by the end of January, we would start billing the remaining routes, and we've done that. We met all.
So we are now pulling all the usage measurement data off of the smart meters
Yes.
electronically.
And it's like today we build 10 routes, so it'll take a little while to get through all the routes, but we are using the system to bill from now on.
Okay.
And I added in here what our electric read rate is. For the past few days, it's been at 99.4%, and we'd like that to be closer to 99.9. Water, it was 99.2. Again, we'd like that to be closer to 99.9. So we still have some mitigation work we're going to do. It won't keep us from billing, but we're going to continually looking at our system to find out, where to reposition some of our radios. And I'll get into that a little bit in the next slide. I wanted to point out that for our electric meters, the never read meters is down to 77. It was 200 and some a few months ago. We're down to 77. The water meters, we're down to 11.
Meaning those are the meters that you're not able to communicate with wirelessly.
Yes.
Correct.
And for the water.
So are we sending people out? Are we sending meter reader?
No, to read those
Yeah.
meters, yes.
Okay.
Yes. For the water meters, we were at 160 some, mostly in basements. We've done the mitigation work. We've got that down to 11. So we'll continue that work, and I'll talk about it a little bit. So we're continuing. We want to continue to strengthen the backhaul. That means putting out, we have 10 additional cell relays we want to put out there, and 8 water data collection units. They're called CCUs. We want to get those out there. Then we want to map where everything is, map where the meters are. We're having trouble communicating, the small number we still have, and then maybe if we can move things around a little bit to get to those meters, that that we'll do that. For the water, first let me go to the electric's a mesh. We've talked about that before. So meters have many different pathways to get back here. For the water, basically it's point to point. So we want to make sure, to the extent we can, that each water meter can see at least 3 different CCUs. Right now we still have some that only can see one and 11 that aren't seeing any. So we want to optimize that. If we can get it to 2 or 3, we're going to do that. We have a fiber extension we're working on right now up to Montrose that will add additional Tropos radios and gateways. That means we can take the data to the fiber and get it back here a lot sooner. And the quicker we get it on fiber, the better off we are. The data tends to be of better quality. You don't lose things like you do sometimes with the Wi-Fi type transfer. So that's what we'll be doing in the next 5 to 6 months.
Can you describe how we are collecting the data right now? Are we in vans with devices, or are we in the office? How are we?
The way the system works, we have a Wi-Fi wide area network, which is the Tropos radios. There's about 265 of those.
Mm-hmm.
They mesh together. They bring the data to the fiber.
Okay.
And then through a gateway, it comes back to us. And then on the electric side, we have the meters that talk to each other, then talk to a cell relay to those Tropos. And the water side will talk through a collection unit, the CCU, the collection unit, that there's, I believe, about 20 of those out there right now, that then talk through that Tropos.
So we
network.
don't have any meter readers out in the field?
We still have a few on
I mean,
staff.
the physical reads, yes, but for this purpose, to collect this data, there is no one out there.
No, well, we still have them on staff, and they will go out to the meters that aren't reading.
Right,
And we are doing some matching up to the data still to make sure it's all correct, but for billing purpose, we're billing off the system.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So, work for next year, depending on how much we get done in the next 6 months, we're looking at a budget of about $5 to $5.5 million in fiscal year 13-14 to complete that $51 million obligation. Projects we're looking at, we have a distribution automation project that includes a pilot program on 4 feeders where we're putting intelligent devices that we will be able to talk to and move power around and gain some experience with that. And then a distribution management / outage management system that allows the distribution operations to control those devices. So we will start that one back up.
So I just want to ask some questions for
Sure.
for the benefit of the public. So the DOE obligation is that the project needs to encompass certain parameters, right, certain things. And so in order to meet that obligation, there's some additional work we need to do on the system, some functionality and things that the system needs to be able to do. And you're estimating that being costing an additional $5 to $5.5 million of work. And then our fiscal year, refresh my memory, is just again for the public. It's
July
to June.
Yes.
So this is, we're talking about the next fiscal year, meaning starting July of this year. And has GWP already incorporated this into their budgeting that they're going to be presenting for council?
We're putting those budgets together right now.
Okay.
I've submitted this as part of my budget. It still has a whole process to go through before it gets approved.
Okay.
So in addition to the distribution automation piece, we still have a number of enterprise computer systems we're looking at. If you recall, a few months back, we did buy an enterprise service bus to tie all our systems together. We purchased that. We have installed it. We've tested it. And then we ran out of the funding, so we haven't hooked anything up to it or integrated with it, but that is one of the things we have to do next year. One of the first things we'll integrate with is the demand or the distribution management system, because we know we're going to be doing that work. And then we have a number of different systems to look at. We have choices to make in the next 6 months on what ones we do, depending on how much funding we have and what makes more sense for us to get the benefits out of the system. And some of those things we're looking at, business intelligence tools, being able to use that data we're collecting. That means setting up a data warehouse and having the tools to look at that data and analyze that data and present that data in meaningful ways for the staff.
Could you stop there for just 1 second? Sorry to interrupt you. Sometimes that word intelligence gets misinterpreted, and I think it's important that the public understand, especially since it's going to be a big budget piece for GWP to get through the council. So just kind of thinking ahead and trying to add transparency. Can you give us an example of what a business intelligence use would be from the data that we're gathering? Just an example or two of what you would like to be able to do.
There's a lot of processes and reports and things like that we do in our manual. If we have our systems connected through the enterprise service bus and all that data is stored in a warehouse in a way that you can access it and build reports and you can build dashboards. We've talked about at council meetings the KPIs. Those kind of things could be done automatically and daily with these kind of tools. You would set it up to do certain queries and things, and you could have a dashboard that would tell you, how much money you brought in this month and how much you had projected. You could look at system information, the read rates I mentioned. They could be automatically presented to somebody through this. You can do ad hoc type reports as well. Those are
using existing information more intelligently.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
And more efficiently and more creative and accessible for the staff to be able to pull together more quickly than in the old days before before our supervisor.
Because you'll share data from different parts of the organization that typically has never shared data. So you might get a different picture of what's out there because you had data from the power plant, the distribution system, the meters out there, what customers are using, and you can match all that up.
I guess the reason for my question is that sometimes when I'm out in the community and people hear that I'm on the GWP Commission and they've heard a lot of things about the smart meters communicating data back to the city, and this came up also in a city council meeting I attended on another matter entirely last week, and I think to the extent that people hear this word intelligence, they might wonder if GWP is intending to utilize customer data in some new or unforeseen ways that we didn't previously use. Of course, all our data about individual customers is protected, is private, is secure. You're talking about business applications for the staff's production of its own reports, et cetera.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And
thanks.
to the extent we can bring data together to help the customer better, we'll do that as well. But it's not for third parties or to sell it. No, it's all internal.
Thank you.
This enterprise computer system, is this going to include or is it going to tie to the current CIS?
Yes, it will. It'll tie eventually to PeopleSoft, our Harris North Star customer service systems, the meter data management system that we just put in. So it'll cover all those.
And there's no need to really work on the current CIS system to be able to work with that? Is there a major upgrade? Or?
We do have, we just went through a major upgrade of Harris, and I'm like the one that will be to speak on that. I can't talk about this where we talk here on the Harris eCare upgrade is an upgrade we'll be looking at. If you go online to pay your bill, you put in the information and this page comes up that looks rather old, because it is. It's 10, 12 years old. That part of the system needs to be upgraded. So that way we will have single sign-on, so customers can go in and sign up, put in their information, and gain access to the various, pay their bills, and gain access to the various programs, and that all has to be upgraded, yes.
Yeah, I'm asking because I want to know if it's going to be like a huge project that we're going to have to undertake and requires like millions and millions and millions of dollars.
That's not what we're contemplating
okay.
here.
Excuse me, Commissioner Chan, the customer, the CIS, is already integrated with
Okay.
our new meters. So what he's talking about is upgrades, minor improvements to keep the system running. But the major integration has already been completed.
Okay.
For example, the Harris eCare upgrade, there's 3 or 4 different modules there. If we installed all of them, it was the bill was about $280,000. We might look at some smaller subset of that.
Okay.
And in this area, in terms of enterprise software, is this where we would also, the customers would actually see more robust interface in
Yes.
terms of their data and usage so that they can be more informed about how they're using
Yes,
these
exactly.
resources?
We have to have that, for cybersecurity purposes, we have to have that login where the customer logs in, and then we get to a page where we can put stuff that's secure. And we don't have that yet. We're looking at a few options. The city's looking at redoing their whole web page. As part of that, we hope that maybe the single sign-on comes from there. The other option is this Harris eCare upgrade. We upgrade. That can provide the single sign-on for us. Right now, most customers, there are a couple photovoltaic customers that can't access their data online because of the negative numbers, but most customers can go see their electric data. They can't see their water data. And that's the single sign-on issue. We have collected the data. We do have software that can put it in a format they could look at. It's just we can't give them access without the security layer. So that's probably 3 to 6 months, probably closer to 6 months. So.
And, Mr. President, you'll see the final slide in the deck is related to more customer programs in general. Mm-hmm. So he can go over that with you.
Yeah, there are a number of customer programs that, some of these will happen in the next 6 months. Some won't start until the next fiscal year. And the online access to water data, that's what I was just talking about. Mm-hmm. We are talking with O-Power, who was partnering with somebody that might be able to give this to us in as little as 3 months. But I'm not ready to say that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, what I was referring to is like even right now, if someone goes online to pay their bill, let's say, which is when they're usually going online, there's a very, very basic usage email bar graph.
That's that's
Yeah.
what we showed for 12 years or 10
Right.
years.
So you're estimating that in about 6 months, customers will see something more robust than that?
I mean, that's the hope. I mean, because we are collecting it on the ITRON system.
Right.
The Harris system, we would have to, get the budget approved and then go through contracting, so it could be longer than 6 months. If we can get a single sign-on, we can show some data right away.
Yeah, because my concern is that, we've been at this for several years now. We've asked people to come along this journey with us, and then my concern is that, in a few months, if council decides that they're also going to take up, electric rate increases, we have yet to show, some tangible benefits back to the customer where that can, where they can start to touch and feel, this investment. And so I think, the timing of that is critical as well.
Yes.
So it'd be good even if we're starting to, even if the timing is further out, that we maybe, before we're going to them with electric rate increases, we could at least look at, showing them what some pilots or demos of what the future looks like now that we've made this investment.
And we do have those small pilots, the in-home display pilot. It's about 70 customers. That's working really well. And those customers can see the water. We'd certainly like to expand that, but then, that all has to do with budget.
I can tell you as being on that pilot, though, the water part of it is very, it's very impactful because normally you don't think about water usage. But I'll tell you one of the biggest things it teaches you is how much water we use on landscaping. Because the days I have my sprinkler turned off, the bars just drop dramatically.
Wow.
On the days that the sprinklers do come on, it just goes through the roof. So I
Yeah,
think,
it's really dramatic. 'Cause we had house guests, so we had
Yeah.
lots more showers and things, and the bar goes whoop. Another thing I think is really exciting, and I know there may be some detractors, but I think people will come along when they get used to it, is the use of the data that will allow people to see their usage compared to neighbors with similar-sized properties or adjacent properties. And some people have, stopped me at meetings and things and said this seems like, big government, and who cares what your neighbors are doing. But I did read that the most powerful way to affect change in human behavior is not to exhort them to change their behavior or necessarily even incentivizing their behavioral changes, but rather to show them what their peers are doing. And that's just part of our human nature, is that we kind of have the herd mentality, I guess. So that, I think, is really an exciting application for this data, for people to be able to compare their usage against the data from anonymous others, not individual names or anything secret revealed, but just so you can see where your habits line up against others similarly situated.
What's the current plan in expanding the in-home display program?
Well, we have about 3 more months in the pilot, and it comes down to budget. We hope to put a regular program together and go to council in the next 6 months and start one using PVC funds in July.
Because, please refresh my memory, how many do we have in the pilot program?
I believe it's just over 70, about 72.
72, and the next plan is to go to council for how many more?
We want to get with those people and see their experience.
Okay.
Because these devices there's a charge for the device, and then
Right.
there's a charge for the monthly fee, and we want to make sure that we design a program that people will participate in. Is that some combination of rebates or paying for the device up front and for so many months? We need to decide that,
I see.
and we'll look to the customers who participated to get that advice.
Okay.
the one thing, I don't know, did you have more?
No, that was.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to encourage or kind of offer that I think is important, budget season is always a stressful, intense period for everyone concerned, and a lot of competing needs for limited dollars in the city. I think to the extent that it would be helpful for the commission to express views on the prioritization that staff comes up with in terms of what things need to be funded. I think it would be beneficial to have that sort of discussion on a commission level with staff, so that if we need to also come and present our perspective during those budget study sessions, or express views at a commission meeting that can then be passed on to the study session, I would encourage staff to consider that sort of dialogue with the commission, so that we could help weigh in on some of these important programs. I think particularly in this sort of thing, I personally, I would really like us to cross some finish lines with this and not drag this out any further, because I think it endangers the actual investment you've made when you sit there on the technology. I mean, technology depreciates, and we made this investment specifically with some customer benefits and system efficiency benefits and cost savings. I mean, all these things kind of wrap together, and if we just say, let's hold that, then I think there's a downside risk to just sitting in your current position. So I'd personally be interested in making sure that the commission has an opportunity to weigh in on the importance of kind of passing the finish line here with the DOE deadline and project in front of us. I would hate to see us have to go back to DOE and say, oh, we just couldn't find the money, and so we're behind again. So at least cross some hurdles, though. Of course, I fully recognize that we may have to prioritize some things here. But I think meeting DOE obligations is very important, as well as doing some things where the customer starts to feel something tangible and different in return for their dollars really here that we've been investing. So just some initial thoughts, but at minimum, a request to staff that, we discuss those things prior to the budget sessions happening.
In fact, with that in mind, I quite agree, and I was looking ahead at the agenda forecast. I know we'll get to that later in our agenda, but since May looks like it's currently a light month, I would like to propose that we direct staff to come back to us in May, and perhaps also propose that the city attorney help us out by perhaps a draft resolution that we could discuss and potentially adopt that would communicate our the will of this body to City Council before they go into the budget session, so that they know we either do or don't approve of the $5 million request or whatever. We might be able to have a more informed debate, and we're missing one commissioner, et cetera. So I wonder if that might be of interest, so that we can have an opportunity to signal.
So let's discuss that when we get to agenda forecast. But and I might, by the time we get there, also suggest we look at it a little bit more broadly. As a commission body, you're going to have many things to look at as staff when it comes down to setting your budgets. And maybe if a commission might be helpful in saying, here are 3 important areas that, kind of get prioritized higher than other areas based upon commission review, staff recommendations, et cetera. So in addition to the smart meter program, it might be even a few other things we may wish to look at as part of that process. So why don't we discuss that at agenda forecast?
And before we move on, I would see how procedurally I would do this, maybe by way of a motion. I think I would like to commend the GWP for its recent successes, so that we would have that as part of our minutes, that we as commissioners adopted a resolution commending the staff, and I think that that's an important statement to make to City Council. So I guess I would move that we commend staff for its recent successes concerning our completion of the Go Live project and our significant step up in our ability to bill our customers from those smart meters.
I would second that.
We don't formally have this before you as an action item, as silly as that seems given the nature of your motion, but certainly you can all express your thoughts on
Individually.
Right.
And we can certainly reflect that in the minutes as well.
Okay, that would be fine with me then. I understand we don't have we can't do a
But,
formal motion.
I think you should also remember that thought when we get to the point of doing what I just discussed, which is, when we get to a point of, where we actually want to agendize a resolution for a particular meeting, which would show the Commission's recommendations about prioritization, where we could include that. But individually, I fully concur with Commissioner Dentler's comments. That's a big milestone to get something so technically complex to that point. I know because I've been involved with Edison's smart meter program, and it's even tougher when you've got 5 million meters to get to that point. But I think this is a huge step, and I think getting it down to under 1% of meters, I have full confidence you guys will troubleshoot those remaining 100 or so water and electric meters to solve the issues. But I think that sets us up for the next phase, which I hope we'll be able to prioritize the funding for, so that next fiscal year we're saying we're completed, and now we're on to really getting more customers to participate in this program or that program that are now enabled by this technology.
I just have a question regarding the customer programs. I know you have 72 IHDs out there, but are there any manufacturers or IHDs that can actually use those IHDs that they purchase individually and communicate with the smart meters now?
We don't have any, other brands that are out there, just the pilot we're doing. We've had some customers ask about it. We do have some security concerns that we have to address with our city information services department about allowing those, but other utilities have worked through those issues, and we will be too.
So potentially in the future, the customer doesn't have to pay a monthly fee. If they purchase a device somewhere like a Home Depot, they can still be able
Sure.
to read it directly through the meter.
There, I'm sure, be plenty of devices out there.
Are you guys considering those sorts of devices as well?
We're concentrating right now on the pilot we have, but we would certainly consider having rebates for other devices. The uniqueness of the one where we're looking at allows us to communicate other messages through it. That's why.
Yeah, it has additional benefits to the city and.
To the city and
Yeah.
GWP. So.
But recognizing what Commissioner Yao is saying, some people don't
we'll
want to
definitely have
get
many
into a
options out there.
monthly, never-ending commitment
Right.
versus,
We
a
don't want
one-time commitment.
And then also to expedite that process for a customer to understand their meter usage, that if they can get something beforehand, before GWP can go through this whole process of reviewing and surveying the existing pilot, if there's something quick that they can use right away, then that'll be helpful as well.
Yes.
But you're saying there's nothing like that at this point?
We have some cybersecurity issues. We have to internally we have to work out, and it's with our security people and city ISD. They're reluctant at this point to let a third party connect through the Zigbee, but that shouldn't be an issue. We just have to work that out internally. I know there's a couple customers out there that have a product they want to hook up through the Zigbee that we're talking with. So.
And what kind of a survey from the pilot participants are you anticipating doing in terms of behavioral changes that they made because of the IHDs? What kind of questions will you be anticipating to ask?
I know we're going to have focus groups and other kinds of things. We did do some surveys with customers through the company that has put the device out there. In order to get at the details that you're looking at, I would like to come back or have one of my staff come back and they can present that to you.
Yeah, if you can present the questions asked and the answers and how you compile the data to show that this IHD pilot was effective or not effective. Or
Yeah, definitely that. Before we would ever go to council and ask for money to fund a larger program, you would get all that information.
Great, thank you.
I was surveyed quite a long time ago, so I'm personally curious to know, how it's moving along. And I do think that it would be a great thing to get that moving forward, or at least get it in front of council so they understand it, see it, feel it, touch it. It is fun and interesting to have it in my home, although it has, there's some limits to the information and it's not interactive. So, we've gone a certain ways towards it, and I was surveyed ages ago about how I use it and feel about it. So
That's why my suggestion was to do a progressive survey so that over time people do lose that novelty of the IHD, and so they might not look at it as much, because I have the same experience with different surveys. And so that would be good to understand how often they looked at it initially, and over time, how less frequent they visited it, and how useful the information becomes, and whether if they're willing to pay a certain amount for that. Right now, they're getting for free. So I know those questions will come up, but maybe over time, they might be willing to pay $100 initially, but over time, you might say less value to it, and you might not want to pay $10 a month. So it'd be nice to see all those surveys.
Okay.
So we'll anticipate hearing from you in terms of whenever you get to a point you're going to do focus groups and the
Yes.
results from that.
And we'll bring something back.
Okay. Any other questions?
About when are you thinking of doing the focus groups?
I would have to check with my staff that are.
I'm asking because we had a gentleman that came out to my house and did not work. They were not able to get the display working. So he left, and then we never heard back. So
I
I've
can
never seen
follow
the
up with-
display yet. So I'm wondering if it's even worth getting the display now. Do we have enough time?
Oh,
to-
yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
I'll have somebody contact you, and we'll.
Okay. And then the other point I want to make is, a couple months ago, I mentioned how another utility was telling me that they're studying the Glendale smart grid model. So I made that comment a couple months ago, and right now I want to repeat it again and congratulate you and staff on the great work and, many other utilities are aware of the accomplishments of Glendale.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Keenan. Next agenda item.
3B, community outreach videos.
Mr. President, members of the commission, Glendale Water and Power has been working on some videos to show the community who we are and what we do, and Mr. Keenan's going to show you some of those videos and get your feedback.
First, Atina was going to be here to give this presentation. She's been sick, so you have to put up with me again. Basically, we've started a couple different outreach campaigns, and they're videos. One group of videos is to basically put a face to the government. That's a larger city project, and I'll show you some videos for that. And internally, we have up to 10 videos, 30-second spots, so we're going to do the feature people and in how we handle an outage or customer service complaint or something to do with water. So we'll have about 10 of those, and then we'll have one 4-minute video of a larger historical piece and why GWP is important to the city and all the different kinds of things we do for the city. That video we hope to have done in a couple weeks, so we'd certainly like to bring it back and show it to you when it is ready. For today, I have one 30-second video, part of the one campaign where we kind of cover what we do with our power outage, and then we have a couple profiles of 2 of our employees that are part of the larger city. If you want to show the first one, the power outage video.
I often know the problem before you call.
I can assure you our crew is working on the problem.
I dispatch the crew that troubleshoots the outage.
I'm part of a crew that finds and fixes the problem.
And I restore your power.
We take great pride in providing reliable service to our customers and in always being there when the unexpected occurs. Glendale Water and Power, your trusted community utility.
So that's the first of maybe up to 10 different videos. And they'll be on our website and hopefully on GTV6 and YouTube and other many outlets as we can get it. Next 2 videos are profiles of employees, one electric and I believe one water. First one is Robert Torres, I believe.
Hi, my name is Robert Torres, and I work for Glendale Water and Power as an electrical line mechanic. In my profession, I get to construct and maintain the city's overhead and underground electrical system. My main purpose is in the event of a power outage to restore power to the residents as safe and efficient as possible. The thing I like most about my job is that I am one of many of the elite individuals that take pride in what they do each and every day. We have even had the opportunity to lend our services responding to mutual aid to other surrounding cities. I enjoy working for Glendale Water and Power and enhancing the quality of life for the residents of Glendale. My name is Robert Torres, and this is my Glendale.
The next one is Hector Pena.
Hi, I'm Hector Pena, Senior Water Facilities Operator for Glendale Water and Power. My job duties is to maintain the 32 reservoirs and 26 pump stations throughout the city. On a daily basis, we ensure adequate water levels on storage facilities and make sure our pump stations are running properly to provide clean and safe water to the residents of Glendale. I'm Hector Pena, and this is my Glendale.
So those last 2 videos were part of the larger city campaign. We're going to kind of continue that at GWP and have on our website every month or so. We'll put a couple new employees on there. Hopefully we'll get through all 400 at some point. And Tina was going to show you the web page, and we still have some things to work out with that. But again, we'd like to come back and show you how it's going to be set up on the web.
Are you going to do any videos on safety, especially like down power lines, that sort of thing?
That could be one of the 10 topics, yes.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues, right, with the windstorm that was a little over a year ago. So I think educating the public about some of the very important safety considerations when it comes to down power lines would be a good thing to do.
Excellent idea.
And you could feature employees at the same time.
Oh, sure, yes. That's basically the...
Okay.
Oh, and I just have a question regarding the outreach videos. Is this part of a larger city campaign that you mentioned?
The last two videos, yes, the city is going to have a campaign where they have a couple people from every department that will be similar to those that the last two we showed. So that is part of the city campaign. We're doing another one of our own where, with the power outage one, we could do the safety one, a downline. We're looking to do up to 10 of those in the next couple months, just to get them out there, maybe on GTV6 on our web.
Okay.
Plus the larger 4-minute video.
So I was just curious if the citywide campaign was more of a PR push. Is that the new image that Glendale is trying to put out?
I guess.
It looks pretty impressive. It looks like a very good PR.
The whole idea of that is they want, faces, usually you're just faceless people or you're just answer. They want to show you real people doing real things for the city, for the customers and the people who live here. And they'll have videos of people from parks or from, other departments and what they are doing, and so you can get a feel of who you're talking to when you call up the city or you interact.
When will these start to get pushed out?
This
They're
one
running already?
we hope to have on the web here in a few days, the first one, 30-second one. I would have to get back to you on when the city is going to start airing theirs.
Is that also going to run on Channel 6?
That is our hope, is that all these will run on Channel.
I didn't notice at the end, I bet it's there, but do you have our phone number and website on the closing frame of each video?
On the GWP
ones, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Sure. Well, they're charming, all of them, so thank you for showing them to us.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to the next agenda item, I wanted to ask the attorney, we have a couple other reports that are given to us, but they're not on the agenda. Is there an appropriate time we could ask questions about that? So, for example, there was the outage report that Mr. Obeg provided.
We don't have a space for that on today's agenda, but we should include that if that's the desire of this commission to speak about those things. Then
Can I ask a general question?
Sure.
Because the report does cite an incident that where a truck backed into a pole and damaged a pole, which caused an outage. In those sorts of cases, does the city recover the cost of the damaged pole and the repairs from the person who committed the act?
Yes, we do.
Okay. That was my main
At least
question.
you guys try, right? You
Try our
make the
best. We
claim,
absolutely, yeah.
That was the discussion, I think, last year, was that the city do make those claims, but getting it is, I'm not sure what the success rate is. Do we get 100% success rate in the claims that we submit?
I don't have a stat on what the success rate is. I could look into that and get back to you, but we put a lot of effort into that. That's very important to the city. So we pursue insurance, we pursue responsible parties, we go to great lengths to make sure we get.
Okay. Great. Well, maybe since we'll look at this in the agenda forecast, but we haven't had an outage report in a while. Maybe we can, when we get to agenda forecast, we can put one in, and Mr. Obeg can roll this one up to the latest one. Okay, next agenda item.
4, oral communication.
Okay. I don't have any cards, so we can move on. Next agenda item.
5, agenda forecast.
So to start with, we pick up where we left off a couple of agenda items ago. We were talking about before the budget cycle starts, doing some sort of review of what the budget that GWP will be submitting to council for review, doing that in advance so that commission could express their views on it. So would the appropriate time be, I mean, Commissioner Dentler was suggesting May because right now we only have one agenda item on the forecast. Does that work? Sorry?
April already, isn't it? The budget?
No, 13-14 budget is in April.
So will you already have that budget? You'll have the budget baked by then?
We are working through the budget now. I would presume we could get the April date, but we can play that by ear and see if you want to take it then or move it to a meeting where you've got some more time to.
Yeah, I mean, I'd
work
like
through
to see
details.
us spend a little bit of quality time on this topic so that we can, make recommendations and kind of get into it a little bit more.
Can I suggest we keep the existing April 1 bullet point for discussion, the third bullet point for budget, just keep it in there as a item on our April agenda so that if we did want to direct the attorney to bring back to us in May a resolution concerning recommendations to council about the budget, we would have time to do that in our April meeting. That could spill over into May when we'll be discussing it and voting on such a resolution. So I think it probably should show up twice. That would be my hope is that this commission can communicate to council something about the budget in our May meeting. So if we need that two-step process, have it one place in April and then back.
So maybe, yeah, I would second that.
When do we usually go to council with the budget? I think it's around that time. Do we have enough time?
When are the budget study sessions normally?
Typically in May.
In May?
That's my
Yeah,
understanding.
so we may
And then it's
be
approved
short
each
of a month.
Well, we'll do what we can. We're meeting early. It's May 6th, so let's try to really have a discussion and a presentation in April if we need to. Doesn't the appearance of that phrase on our April 1 budget give us the procedural protection we need if we did want to adopt a resolution as a result of that conversation in April?
We would want to agendize it as an action item as opposed to a report only, and we can certainly do that.
Okay, so I propose we do that then for April. That would be the most conservative approach.
Meaning agendize it as an action item in April.
In the event we want to take action.
And you don't need to.
Right.
And you can always re-agendize it for May if you felt
Okay.
that you needed more time.
So we'll have the item appear on both. We'll have it appear on both as action items, but then we can adjust based upon what the dates are on the budget and where you are with actually pulling together your recommendations as staff for the budget.
Mr. President, members of the commission, and as well, I think next month we'll have to think seriously about whether or not we want to take on everything in the April list. It's quite a bit to handle, so we may want to revisit that at next month's agenda forecast meeting and decide really how much of that you want to take on, especially if you're going to take a detailed look at the 13-14 budget.
If we could take a look at April, see if there's anything in there that we can or want to move up to March, because I think March could handle another.
Need to keep the
agenda item.
call on, if I can make a special request for that, because organizations and individuals that had expected to be before us last month and didn't make it now know that coal will be back on our April agenda, so I'd like that to remain, since so many people are evidently planning to come.
What if we were to move Chrome 6 and Water Services Division update up?
To March? Yeah.
Yeah, those two kind of go together.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
we
agree.
haven't talked about water in a while. You agree with that?
I agree.
Chan?
I agree if staff's ready.
Pending confirmation from Ramon, who's has to do that update, but we can move it to March now.
When you don't show up to meetings, things get decided for you.
We can move it to March now, and then, if there's an issue, we'll let you know.
The other thing we can do is have, in April, if it's such a compact, a lot of issues to discuss, is to have two meetings in April, a special meeting. That's the option that we can have.
Have a special budget meeting.
Yeah, if that's something that we want to discuss.
You could do that.
Well, there's also only one item in May, so.
Yeah, a lot's going to depend on when the timing is for budget study sessions, so that we can obviously do something in time for it to be meaningful for council. But, so if people agree, commissioners agree, let's move the 2 water items up at least. That relieves it a little bit. We'll leave the coal projects quarterly update and strategic objective on coal where it is. We'll leave the budget discussion where it is. What is the utility bill redesign? Is there timing associated with that?
You know, I think we're going to want to move that out, and the reason is that we're just now starting to look at a cost of service analysis, and that includes looking at special rates, time of use rates, things like that, and you can't really update your bill until you've gotten through that entire process, so there's really no way we're going to be able to get to that in April.
So
my guess would be more like July, August before we're able to get.
Should we go ahead and just move
July.
it now? Okay, so let's move it to July for now. Okay, so that leaves the 2 coal items, the budget, and utility modernization update, which will be the second, we're skipping that next month. It would be 2 months from now. And then we can always adjust it in March. If there isn't something warranting a discussion on that, we can always.
Sure.
We can always just delete that one because there's another one coming up in June.
Right. If we're looking at needing to put a second meeting on our calendars before council adopts a budget or debates a budget, would that realistically, a second meeting we would try to hold in April, and should we look for a placeholder date, or would it be more likely to be an early May meeting?
My understanding, President and members of the Commission, is that the budget study sessions are typically throughout May, sometimes even spilling into early June. The actual adoption is at the very end of the fiscal year, so that like the June 30th meeting or June 26th or what have you. So it might be more appropriate to have that meeting even in June or late.
You certainly will have time at the May meeting, I would think, for a second bite at the budget apple, so to speak. If you have it in April, you've already got the May 6th meeting scheduled, and you can revisit then as well.
Yeah, I mean, I suggest we kind of just deal with through April right now. We do have 3 of the seats in the commission that will be up for reappointment or appointment come after the April 2nd elections. So I think, whatever we may decide here today could be changed based upon the composition of the future commission.
Well, let me ask 2 procedural questions. One about the election, but first about the rate hike. When is the council likely to? What month is likely to pressing the rate hike?
We don't know what the rate impacts are yet. As I just mentioned, we're just starting a cost of service analysis, and we're working through the allocation of costs and the various rates that we may want to design. So it's going to be several months out from now. I don't know exactly when that is,
okay,
but it'll be long after April.
All right, that's helpful so that will not be right before the council for discussion, debate, protracted meetings about that at the same time that we're adopting the budget at the end of June.
I'm not anticipating that in June.
So that's useful to know. And then I also wondered, can you refresh me my recollection about how the city council election impacts the appointment, the period of service for commissioners when the election results are announced April 2nd? April 3rd.
Or 2nd.
Assuming the outcome is known by then. And then for those people who are at the end of their term, do they serve out their term through the month of April and into May, or no? How does that work?
Well, the April 1st is the day before
that's
elections.
The day before.
Yeah.
So those, any new appointments could happen in the month of April?
Mm-hmm. depending how quickly they're able to move, but your term, any of those of you that are appointed by someone who may be up for election, let's say that person is not reelected, well, your term is coterminous. You have the same term as the person who appointed you. So technically, that would be the end of your term, although I believe there's a provision that allows you to continue on until such time as another person is appointed, just for practical reasons.
Unless they.
That's at the discretion of the council.
I believe so, and I will frankly have to go back and refresh my recollection on that, and I can update you at the next commission meeting.
That might be helpful
We'll know.
as we
Yes.
plan ahead. Thanks.
But for the April budget session discussion, can we discuss the actual transfers and actual making recommendations for the next month's meeting as a motion to recommend to City Council on how much to transfer, or is that set that the city manager and the GDP general manager makes, and we can't really make certain recommendations on the transfer amount?
Well, the transfer amount is established by council every year, so they've already set that for this year. That's really something that's within their purview. I think as part of the budget discussion, you can ask questions, you can inquire, you could perhaps even make a recommendation that council revisit that as part of the next year's process. But you should also keep in mind that, as we discussed at the last meeting, that there's currently going to be a measure on the ballot about that issue as well. So, but as part of the budget process, you can certainly consider that.
But I think that when you say this year, you're talking about this fiscal year. So the transfer is set already through the end of June. This is a budget for the next fiscal year. That has not been decided yet. Am I correct?
Well, you know what, actually, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about this. They do visit the issue of the transfer at the end of the fiscal year per the charter. So
As part of the regular budget process?
Right, yeah.
So I imagine whatever we discuss in April as part of the proposed next fiscal year budget, that GWP is going to be putting some line item in there about a transfer, if past performance is any indicator.
Right, so if a majority of this commission wanted to include, as part of that motion or resolution, something with regard to the transfer, then certainly you could do that. That's
Right, and then in the study, the normal budget process, commission would take that input as part of their consideration when they decide the overall GWP budget.
And my understanding, and I think you've heard this many times before, is that the goal is to put a placeholder in the budget that would be last year's transfer minus $250,000.
I think that's what was said at the last
And so that's
meeting.
what I think you'll see in proposed budgets. And council can correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously your purview is to make recommendations on anything related to our operations. So I would think that if you wanted to make a recommendation along those lines, you could do so, and that would be passed up to the council to consider.
And is the transfer set as part of the GWP budget decision, or is the transfer actually its own decision?
It's typically taken to the city council as its own decision, as a separate agenda item.
Okay, so even though it's incorporated into the GWP budget, which, may get approved or adjusted or what have you, separately, so let's say they agree on it and they approve the GWP budget the way it's presented, which would have a line item about transfer in it, they could come back later and adjust the decision on the transfer issue specifically with a second decision.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think these are all really important issues to consider. This is why I think our commission discussion will be very important for us to have, because obviously, the transfer issue also has to do with, funding important projects on infrastructure, capital projects, et cetera. It's not the only thing, but it's part of that whole picture. So I do agree with you, Commissioner Yao, about the importance that when we do get to this topic in April, that we look at all those things. So one of the things, just to be clear on what at least my expectations would be from that discussion, Mr. Lenz, is that it would be good for the commission to hear, not just here's what our budget's going to be, but as part of that also some discussion about how your staff is prioritizing. Chances are you may not get everything you want, right, when you go into these sorts of discussions. How is it that you are prioritizing? Here are the most critical things for GWP, things that are not discretionary, and then here are things that we'd like to do as long as we can get budget. Kind of some sort of prioritization, I think, would help accelerate our discussion in April. Comments on forecast, on that issue or forecast in general?
New issue. So I'd like to consider putting on our August agenda, bringing back renewable energy / alternatives to coal projects. In that, Commissioner Chen, I think, made a good point last meeting I think the staff concurred in, that bringing this up on a quarterly basis would be helpful in moving the utility towards the adoption of a strategic plan for reduction of reliance on coal, and that we should continue it on our agenda on a quarterly basis. I think we kind of had consensus on that last time, so just being proactive, I'd like to add that into the August 5 agenda, which would make it quarterly.
Is there a second to that?
Or actually, I think July, right? Or
Yeah,
so
July
it
would
was
be-
discussed in January, and so the quarterly update got to
Well, you have
July.
one in April.
We're having one in April,
Yeah.
so I think
So
we should
next
have
is
it in July.
quarterly would be
Yeah,
July.
quarterly would be July. Yeah, I agree.
So on to the July 1 agenda item, the quarterly update, renewable energy alternatives to coal
While we're
projects.
looking at that, sorry, but looking at July 1, I was wondering, does anyone have a calendar that has the holiday on it? Well, are we looking at that likely being a Monday of a 4-day weekend and end up,
Thursday.
is it?
July 1st is a Monday.
Oh, that's right, July 4th. Right. When would we likely celebrate for the
Well, July 4th is the Thursday,
on that
so
day.
probably the following weekend.
following weekend?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, unless you take the week off.
No, I just wondered when the city would be closing for it. The actual day.
It's the
Okay.
holiday.
Yeah.
We're safe then. Sometimes we get close to these holidays and decide we can't have a meeting, so.
Sure,
Yeah, I just have two more items. I wasn't here last meeting. I think the President Armenian wasn't there, but I watched the video, and there was some discussion about the charter amendment that's coming up for election in April. So I was wondering if we can have some kind of if this body seems appropriate, on the March meeting, some kind of a motion or recommendation, even for the public, not necessarily the council, on how this commission would suggest to the public to vote for or against the charter amendment. I mean, the motion could be in support of the revised charter, and then we can have discussions and see the pros and cons of why the public should or shouldn't vote for this.
Is that,
Then I'll appeal
Ms.
to you.
Godinez, is that an appropriate?
Let me take that up with the city attorney, and if it's appropriate, then we'll go ahead and put that on the agenda. If there's two that are...
It would definitely be limited to GWP operations, and that's a very small portion, I think, of the bundle of proposed amendments to the charter, as I recall.
I assume that's what you were referring to. There's
Yeah,
one
there was
issue related to the
Just
transfer.
a lot of the revision to the language from surplus fund to just the electric funds or the waterworks funds, and so the condensed version. So you can specify which one or the reason why we should vote from the GWP perspective that would help improve operations or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mixed bag because you're also talking about a larger issue, but I think let's first maybe get an assessment from city attorney office, and then we can go from there.
I think there was a certain amount of that was discussed in the last meeting. Yeah, there was some back and forth between the commissioners and Christine on the different reasons why they're doing what they're proposing. And I felt at the time, I think there were three, right? Three of us, yeah, and I think we were okay with that, with what we heard. So you're
but there wasn't any
proposing an additional one?
public official recommendation on why the public should vote for it or not.
So I would, for purposes of just the procedurally moving us forward, I'd provide the second request to have the city attorney let us know if that's an appropriate thing that we could weigh in on. I think that if we can, perhaps we should adopt a position. I don't know what our position will be, but if we're allowed to, let's put it on our agenda And so if you need two of us to do the legal analysis, provide the second for that.
I will take that back, and I can report back to you at the next meeting.
And if it's appropriate, then the next agenda item for March will reflect a motion to consider, right?
Right.
Oh, and so the second item, Mr. President, is it's requesting a legislative update, because as Mr. Lin suggested earlier in the meeting, I provided an email to him about a feed-in tariff, and that was a mandate from a legislative bill that was passed. And so it's been a while since we've gotten a legislative update on which bills impact the city or GWP. And so if we can have that update, I don't know when, March or May, I guess, because April seems to be booked. But usually in the beginning of the year, when our legislators are considering different bills and how that will impact the utilities, that would be nice to know which bills has an impact or which one we would consider supporting or not supporting.
Yeah, I would second that, and if we could add that to the March meeting, I think by then it should be clear at least some things that are happening in Sacramento, and we haven't had an update from Ms. Haddad in a while.
Mr. President, members of the Commission, it has been a while, and we'd be glad to have our legislative staff come in and give you an update in March. And I know that a lot of bills have just been submitted, and we're still working through those, but we can give you what we've got in March, and if we need to, we can come back, a few months later when the session is nearing an end and we've got, more definitive idea of where things are going.
Okay.
And where did we end up moving water? Can I?
We moved the CRUM 6 and water services update to March.
So will we have in place by then, I believe it was Ramon who told us last month that there was an anticipated hiring back of or bringing in a new water quality person or hiring back an old person? Will that person be in place by March so we could meet him or her?
I do not know what the timeline is on that, but we can certainly try and get that person here if they're available.
Yeah.
Well, that would certainly be part of the water services. Okay, so just to recap, at least for March, so we're clear. In addition to what we have there, which is energy risk management presentation, NERC-WEC compliance program update, customer service update, we are also going to have the CRUM 6 update and water services division update and a legislative update. That's the March agenda forecast, and then the April is...
Well, in the March, did we miss the potential motion to...
Yes. Well, we're going to wait, though, before...
An issue related to the measure, yes.
Yeah. And then for April, we have the coal quarterly update, renewable energy alternatives to coal projects quarterly update, discussion on strategic objective of the reliance of coal, the budget issue, utility monetization, and that's it. We're moving utility bill redesign to, I think we said July. And then we're adding a May agenda item of budget item again, in case we need to continue our discussion. But both budget items on April as well as May are action items.
And the city attorney's going to brief us on the process for the reappointments and the opinion as to whether we can or cannot adopt a motion concerning the charter amendment.
Correct. So that opinion regarding the process for your appointment or reappointment, that to be on the March meeting or?
March.
March, yes. Okay.
Could you also add the election of officers as well, the procedure for that?
That's right. That'll be right up on.
Well, you won't deal with it April because that's the day before election, so you deal with it in May.
Right.
Yeah.
But a discussion of the procedure, is that what you had in mind?
Yeah. Okay. Any other agenda forecast issues? Okay. Thank you. I think this is helpful. Gives us a little bit of a roadmap here. Any other item? Next agenda item is adjournment. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.